and we're back here on Coptic Youth Radio Hour in association with Tuned In, CYC. In the studio now with Barn, Mel, Matt and Tad. Thanks guys for coming in. Our first topic for today we wanted to discuss was what's the approach that we take when, say, Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons come knocking on your door? Do we, I don't know how it is in other sort of countries in the world, but here we have people coming at our doors. They're Christians, and they knock on our doors and they try and preach their faith to us. And I just wanted to sort of get, as a Coptic Christian's perspective, on what do we do in that situation when they come knocking. Do we let them in? Do we not let them in? What do you guys think?
I think it's an interesting question, Michael. I guess it depends also on yourself as well. How you view it. I think ultimately we do need to paint a picture of Christ and how he would have done in the same situation. We shouldn't chuck hot tea at them or anything like that and send them away. But I think we need to make, I guess we can't deny our Christ as well. We should actually pronounce what we believe in, perhaps. And if we feel confident, then we can perhaps start the discussion or make it as long or as short as we feel comfortable. But I think definitely as a start, we can't approach them in any negative way, because that's not really, portraying our Christ in the right way. Yeah. And if we're so-called Christians, as we call ourselves, is that what a Christian really does? Is that what we do? So sometimes we need to reflect on ourselves and the approach that we take it on.
There's many different approaches we can take. Like, what do you think, man? Like, what would you do in a situation like that?
So personally, if I was in the situation, I'd possibly, I'd open the door and everything, and I'd let them talk. They are humans, so am I. So let them talk, see what they want. What if, their intention is something else, They, so just let them talk, acknowledge what they're doing, be nice to them, and then if it's not for you, just kindly say, I'm sorry, but it's not for me. It's not the day for me. Thank you, thank them, and just go on with it. It's not like, I doubt that they're going to take that possibly and in a wrong way, but...
Would you say it's not for you, or would you actually, throw in, maybe and say, oh, look, my typical faith or my faith that I follow differs, or would you?
Yeah, I would possibly say, I am, I do believe in something else, and I respect your belief and I respect your views, but this is my belief, and more or less I would thank you if you would respect mine as well. So, and then we could just, I'd like it, this is me personally, if we could just leave it at that. We could challenge it, but then again, you never know how that goes as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, Maddie, like, do you have to reach a certain spirituality in your Christian life in order to, say, let them in, so you can not argue with them, but just explain to them your point of view? Do we have to have like a certain level where, okay, if you're not up to here, don't let them in, if you're up to here kind of thing, let them in?
I don't think you need to be up to a certain level, and don't quote me here, because, I know there's people who are theologians and people who study theology that will have a very different view. I suppose, there's a verse in the Bible in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. It says, always be ready to give an account of the hope that is in you, right? And I suppose you do need to know what you're talking about, because if you don't know what you're talking about, then they will pull out verses at you from a different translation of the Bible, and they will try and justify things that will make sense to them. And if you don't know what you're talking about, then you'll get caught out. So yes, you do need to know what you're talking about in a way. So to answer your question, do you need to be at a certain level? I would say yes. But then Jesus also says, He who confesses me before men, I will confess before my Father in heaven. And I think that applies to everyone. And that's a verse that always scared me growing up, because like sometimes on the train, I remember going on the train in the morning on my way to work and stuff, and like sometimes I'd feel embarrassed, like if I was praying the Agbiya or something on the train, I'd feel embarrassed to do the sign of the cross. And I'm thinking, here I am feeling embarrassed to do the sign of the cross in front of 20, 30 people, 40, 50 people on a train in a peak hour carriage, or whatever the case might be. But how much more am I going to be ashamed, of missing out of heaven because of that? Does that make sense? Like, here is my eternity. Like, at the end of the day, who cares what these people think of me? And that's the, I mean, it's, in a way, it's a luxury that we have, that we live in a country like Australia, and we live in a place like Melbourne. Like, if I stop and think of the martyrs 2 years ago in Libya, they had a sword to their necks, and they were like, "You're Christian, we're going to kill you, or deny your faith." And they're like, "Nah, we're Christian," and they died as martyrs for that. And I always think, man, I don't know how I would be able to respond if I was in that situation. I'd like to think that I've got strong enough faith, but I feel like I'm weak, and I feel like I'm not there, and that's what always worries me. A really good friend of mine was telling me a story about when Jehovah's Witnesses came to his door and what he did, and I thought it was really interesting. He said, "Look, you're coming with a book, and I'm happy to look at your book and read your book, but let me make you a deal first." And they said, "Okay, what's your deal?" And he said, "I'll read your book if you read my book." And he went to his room and got a book. It was Pope Shenouda's book titled "The Heresy of Jehovah's Witnesses." And so they looked at his book. They were a bit frustrated and disgruntled with him, and they said, no deal." And he said, "Well, fair enough. That's you're entitled to that opinion. So since there's no deal, I respect your wish, and I'm not going to read your book as we agreed." So, and they walked away, and that was it. But I thought it was a really interesting situation. Do you know what I mean? Like, here he was respectful of them. He said, "I'll read your book if you're happy to read mine." They weren't happy to read his, and that's.
But don't you think the book that he brought out, it's attacking them a little bit? Like, so you can sort of see where they're coming from.
Yeah,
so what we're trying to do is sort of, if they come to the door, it depends on your character, your personality kind of thing. But if you're well enough and comfortable enough in your faith, you can invite them in and explain to them the reasons why you believe what you believe.
Yeah. And then it goes back to your question about, do you need to be at a certain level? You do, I suppose you do, yes, need to be at a certain level of knowledge and understanding. When you say a certain level of spirituality, I think that's a really fine line. And the reason I say that is because the more you excel in spirituality, the more humble you should be as well. So you would always feel like you've got more to develop and more to learn and more growth within you.
Yeah.
So I think the first time you think that you're excelling in your spirituality is when you're actually probably not.
Yeah.
And I've fallen in that trap probably myself. But yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well,
so.
What do you think, Mel? Like, we're called to love everyone and be open to everyone and things like that. When you're put in that situation, do you just let it go or like say maybe another time or something? That's true. Yeah. That could always, you can always get that if you're not prepared for something like that.
Exactly.
Um,
And it would be random. You wouldn't expect them to come.
10 points for their for their for their tenacity and their
yeah.
and their zeal in terms of walking
Preaching.
around in the hot sun, rain, hail or shine.
Mm.
You see these two people walking around every single doorstep and every single street.
Yeah.
Perhaps also without we also we've got to invite. Obviously, it's our duty as Christians to to make people aware of Christ.
Yeah.
Not to throw it down anyone's throat or force it down their throat, but definitely the zeal and the effort. Like even if you look at St. Paul, how he tirelessly just tried to preach the gospel all around. He was imprisoned. He got dragged around the streets. There was so much sort of despair and disaster that happened, and yet he pressed on for the furtherance of the gospel. And I think that part of it is some positive that we can see, and I think it's probably something that I myself need to work on, but it's definitely something that we can take as a positive take home.
Yeah.
It's a very sort of interesting topic, and I think most of us have sort of been in that situation before, or we might be in that situation. Let us know what you guys think on our Facebook page, 92.3 FM, 3ZZZ Coptic Youth, and stay tuned. And we're back here on Coptic Youth Radio Hour, tuned in CIC. Just going on what we were sort of discussing before, we wanted to talk more about defending our faith and not denying Christ in front of others. Maddie, you mentioned a really good story about when you were on the train in the last segment about just feeling uncomfortable, maybe doing the sign of the cross in front of the whole people on the train. Is that denying our faith in front of God? Like when that verse, say, in that verse of the Bible that you mentioned, is that sort of denying the faith?
Probably in a point of weakness, it probably was, and that's what scares me. Like if God judges me on that, and His word is true, and it says, "He who confesses me before men, I will confess before my Father in heaven, and he who denies me before men, I will deny before my Father in heaven." And I guess that's what really scares me. If God judges me for those times where I've been weak in my faith and been ashamed to do the sign of the cross, it really scares me, because when I think about it, He wasn't ashamed to spread out His arms on the cross and die for me. He wasn't ashamed to have a crown of thorns or a spear in His side, or 39 scourges and whips with nails on each of those whips, and shredding His body apart and being spat on, being beaten and blindfolded and punched in the face and said, "Prophesy, who hit you?" So when we think of how much He did for us, it's amazing, and it's I suppose I'm ashamed. So
but you were aware that you possibly putting yourself in that position where you're not defending your religion. You're possibly aware that, I'm weak, I am not able to defend myself. If you're aware of it, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You shouldn't take that as a negative thing, because that's a good thing. Because the first thing you should actually think of doing is literally, I know this is my weakness. I'm going to go to God and pray and ask Him to give me that courage. Make me be more brave so that I could actually then do that.
Yeah, and in the next time you're in that situation, you're able to do the sign of the cross, and you don't have that fear.
Yeah.
It's better than someone who doesn't think about it at all, or thinks, I'm 100% doing this because I'm not ready to let people know I'm Christian. That's a big danger.
Yeah, and it ties in, I suppose, as well with what Tad was saying before about how we were talking about earlier with Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons coming to your door, and or having stalls at shopping centres and train stations, and being having that, it's admirable that they've got that strong faith and courage and confidence to boldly speak about their faith. And sometimes I wish I had that. You know, we like to think that we've got the right faith, we've got the right teachings, we've got the Christian beliefs and the Christian values, and we want to share that with people, but we don't. And the question is why? You know, when we know what we've got is right and true, and we believe that what is right, it's right and true, why is it that we don't share it with people? Yeah, I don't know.
I think it starts with the little things as well, guys. So, you know, sometimes we feel we have to do so much and go above and beyond, and you know, God expects just the little things even, and like you guys said, we've got to, you know, build on that. You know, just simple things. You know, my behaviour at my workplace or at my schooling. If I'm in fasting period and I'm eating a vegetarian sandwich or so forth, or a salad sandwich, am I afraid if someone asks me why are you eating that? I used to see you eat meat. Did you change, you know, your diet? And I said, yeah, I changed my diet. But am I really changing my diet, or is it because I'm hiding the truth? I'm hiding. I'm denying my Christ. You know, to say, well, I'm too scared to say that I'm actually fasting. So I think it's even. I think we need to be honest with ourselves in just the small things, and I guess that those larger things will grow with our spirituality, and you know, and we will grow spiritual with those things.
Yeah, well, I don't personally encourage people to, you know, hold up a sign and be like, oh, I'm Christian and I'm trying to, you know, and you don't do that. You just, like you said, you know, don't be in everyday life they say don't be ashamed of yourself, you know, be yourself, express who you are. You know, if you're putting a face on for one people and a face on for the other, you know, try to, you know, be yourself. And everyone nowadays everyone's encouraging that. What's the difference when it comes to religion? It is a part of you, so you want to actually not go hold a sign and show people, oh, hey, this is my religion, but through the actions. Through
it's your way of life. It's the way that you conduct yourself and you behave, and through your behaviour, people will see that.
I don't think it's that we're ashamed. I think it's a lack of confidence, and we should be confident. And if we're not, we should pray, and hopefully that confidence will come to us.
Do you think sometimes that confidence, we're lacking confidence because maybe we're not very close in the church, maybe we don't know the Word of God wholeheartedly, that we can sort of defend it or argue it or just talk about it with others?
Definitely.
Yeah. I think if we do like the little things, like what Tad was saying, if we do the little things good, then I think everything else sort of falls apart, falls together kind of thing.
We should see this as a pathway to get closer to God and become more educated.
Yeah.
But we're talking about those that are aware of the situation, those that are aware that, you know, they're scared and they're doing that. There are those that are not aware, and that's where we come in part. This is where we should do the same, have that persistence in our religion, have, you know, that courage to actually approach that person and be like, hey, I noticed you did this, would you like to discuss it? Or try to actually be there, because you never know, you could prompt someone with something that they are not aware of, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, oh wow, thank you, you know, you just changed. You don't know, like you could do some, you know, something that you think is silly, but it actually prompts them. So that's where we come in part, to actually try to play the action to prompt others, our brothers and sisters around the world and whatnot.
And God works in amazing ways. Like sometimes, like you said, like a little thing that we say or do might touch someone right at that point in time. Like, you know, I know another friend who was going through a tough time at work, and he said a customer came in and said something along the lines of, don't stress, like, you know, he was asking the customer how he's going or something, and the customer said, yeah, not too bad, like, thank God I'm healthy and things are okay, you know. And then it made that person reflect on his own life and go, oh wow, you know, like, yeah, here I am thinking, like, I'm about to lose my job, and, you know, maybe my relationship's not working out great, but, you know, thank God I'm healthy. You know, thank God I've still got people around me that love me and care about me. You know, like I've got eyes that I can see with, and nose that I can smell with, and arms that I can do things with. You know, and just simple things in life. You know, like it's just, yeah, like, I think you touched on a really good point. That God will use sometimes things that we say or do to touch other people's lives around us, and we don't even realize that it's even having an effect on them, but God might be sending that person a message right at that point in time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the ultimate thing is like when we all work and we're all at the workplace, and people will always bring up maybe religion or things like that. Say from the distance and you overhear them, would you step in and say, no, I think this is incorrect, or whatever they're arguing? Would you try and step in and give them your point of view, or would you
depending on the situation, if it is my concern, and if they are being rude in a way and I'm there, then yeah. But if it's not something I'm concerned about and they're just talking casually, then just let them talk, and it just all depends on the situation.
Depends on our level of knowledge too.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think I agree. I think it does depend on the situation. Because the Bible does tell us not to throw our pearls to swine. So sometimes you might be in that situation, and it might turn into a ridicule or something that or demising or mocking the scripture, or mocking Jesus. And I think at that time as well, again, you need to be very careful in how it's approached. But definitely, again, I think judging by the situation, it's a matter of what the situation is like, and then obviously you'd want to step in and at least have a say in terms of defending Christ.
I was listening to a series of Real Dating by Father Anthony Messiah, and there's something in there that he says that I think is really relevant. He's talking about finding the right partner and the life partner, and he says you got to find someone who's hot, right? And then he pauses and laughs and jokes about it and goes, not someone who's like hot, not like that kind of hot, you sleazeballs, but someone who's hot for Christ. And you think about, we talked about the admiration that we have for people who confidently can speak about their faith and have that courage and confidence to speak about their faith. Someone who's hot for Christ, and we've got the good news. We've got what we believe is right and true, and yet sometimes we feel ashamed to share it. We feel lukewarm and cold about our faith, but we should be hot, because that's what God's expecting of us, and we know that, like, we should be sharing it. We should be spreading that love, God's love, to everyone.
Well, how do we be that hot Christian? How do we be in tune with our Bible? How do we what sort of things do we need to do to be more Christian? Maybe instill more of what the Bible says in us.
So you basically want to try to put your knowledge and words into action. Yeah. If you don't know where to go, I personally, when I didn't know, when I took 3 steps back from my religion, and I wanted to take another 100 in front, the first thing I went to was I heard that there was a youth at church, and I just went there, sat down. I didn't know anyone, so I put myself
out. Meeting?
No, it was just a youth group. People were talking about there was a topic on, and so I went to go see what's going on. They were talking about a topic, and I just sat there, and it took me. And then I knew one person, and then I knew the second, and then all of a sudden, it took me into years of actually being in that youth group, being then a part of that church, and then me being someone who actually takes on topics, or someone that with that, I'd say, if you do have that courage, try to use it as much as you can. If you don't, and you see someone that has that courage, go to them. Don't be scared. Go to them. We might sometimes want to, stay at where we are because we're a bit too comfortable, or sometimes we're scared. Yeah. It reminds me of a post that I made a few weeks ago, and it said, "We may walk through life thinking we aren't worthy of His love. This might be because of a sin we made, or because we took a step away from Him. The Lord has made everything for its purpose. We are perfect in His eyes. To see yourself as far from being perfect is to fail to understand the perfect sacrifice that Jesus has made for you. it's never too late to come running back to him. So you shouldn't like basically be scared, you know?
If you fail,
Yeah.
don't let it get you down. Don't let it bulk you down. Don't let it think you're going to hell. This and this. No, you
Be
should always
persistent.
yeah
Yeah.
get
That's
back
very
up.
good.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And that's all the time we have for you guys. Thanks again for joining us. I'd like to thank our guests, Ben and Mel.
No.
Thank you so much, Maddie, as usual. As always, you can listen to this program on our Facebook page. The link to our SoundCloud account is on there. The Richard Z Coptic Youth, and our Facebook's 92.3 FM, the Richard Z Coptic Youth radio program. Give us a like, and we'll end it there. But Mel's got a really nice quote that she'd like to leave us with. What do you want to say, Mel? The
Okay,
inspirational
guys.
quote.
The inspirational quote is, when life puts you in a tough situation, don't say why me, say try me.
Ooh.
Golden words of wisdom from Mel Cardin.
And what a great way to end the program. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and catch you guys next week.